Welcome back to Management 2020. The goal of this presentation is to talk about a variety of presentation contexts that maybe go outside of the norm of what we might think of when we think of a business presentation. So we'll talk off by talking about meetings, which are a common one, but then we'll talk about some maybe less common ones, such as ceremonial presentations and even interacting with the media. So first, let's talk about meetings. Meetings are most effective when meetings are paired with an agenda. So the purpose of an agenda is to provide a map or a description of the goals of the meeting and the items or topics that will be discussed during the meeting. If a meeting doesn't have an agenda, a meeting is less likely to be focused and effective. It's more likely to go over time or to end without anything being accomplished. So an agenda, sending out an agenda before the meeting helps the meeting leader be prepared, but it can also help the group members be prepared for that meeting. So they all come with a common understanding or expectations for what the meeting should do. On the left here, we have an image of a meeting agenda template, and usually at the top of an agenda is some information about the meeting, the time, the place, the people that will attend, and then maybe the meeting title or the subject or the topic. Then the rest of the agenda is usually the topics and the time that's allotted to those topics and the person who will present those topics. And so a document like this helps a team stay focused during a meeting. Some other tips for effective meetings is to make sure you send out invites and send out reminders to the meeting so that people are prepared for the meeting, they don't forget it, and that they're there on time. Establish names, especially if there are new people who are attending the meeting, and you can be explicit about roles. Who's going to take notes? Who's going to maybe serve some other functions that the team might need during the meeting? Be sure to keep to your agenda, focus on the agenda, and sometimes that's someone's role, right? Their role is to monitor the agenda and to introduce each of the speakers or presenters. Have someone take notes. We sometimes call these minutes. Meeting minutes are the notes that were taken about what was discussed and decided during the meeting and what action items will take place as a result of decisions that were made during the meeting. Be sure to communicate respectfully and to start and end on time, including doing your best to keep to the time limits that were indicated on the agenda. And if a topic arises that's important, that people do want to discuss, it may be important to say, hey, that is a great topic. Let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting so that we can make sure this meeting ends on time. Now, another type of meeting may take place. We've talked about this before, online meetings through Zoom or other telecommunication or teleconferencing platforms. The textbook kind of uses an older term, VoIP, voice over internet protocol. I don't think this term is used very much, probably in the last 10 years, especially since the pandemic, where video conferencing is just so common. We just call it video conferencing or a Zoom meeting or a Microsoft Teams meeting or however we're going to call it. But essentially, that's what it means is instead of communicating over traditional telephone or telecommunication services using the internet to conduct our meetings. Now, most people have developed some good skills and practice by the time they're at university with some of these teleconferencing software, but there's actually lots of students who have not used the telephone very much in terms of voice calls. And so the textbook talks about some suggested stages for a telephone call. And I think that this is valuable for us to talk about because a lot of students have anxiety about speaking over the telephone, that they're just so used to communicating through text messages and other instant messaging services that talking live with someone over the telephone can be intimidating. And it is in some ways because we can't see that person. We can't get feedback about their nonverbal cues, such as their body language, their facial expressions. And so talking about effective strategies for a telephone call can make someone come across as more professional and more polite. Sometimes I've worked with younger students who don't follow accepted protocols for telephone conversations, and they can come across as maybe inept or even rude. So let's talk about them. The first is an opening where we identify ourselves and we greet the other person. So if I have to call someone maybe from another department, email is quite commonly used, but maybe there's something that I know is going to take an exchange. And rather than do 10 emails back and forth, I could probably accomplish it in a 1 or 2 minute phone call. So call the person, introduce ourselves, greet them. Now, it's true that with most telephones nowadays, our name may be displayed, but it's still good to introduce ourselves and our position, and then greet the other person. Then we do what's called feed forward. And essentially, this means establish the purpose of the phone call and the tone of the phone call, and helps the other person feel comfortable interacting with you. So if I've got a call from someone from another department, I introduce myself, greet them, and then I tell them I'm calling about, and I state the purpose, or I'm calling because I could use your help with, and again, state the purpose. And then the longest part of the phone call is probably going to be the business section, right? Where we interact in order to complete the goal. I'm asking questions in order to receive the information that I might need, or we're working together to accomplish some kind of problem. Then there's the feedback session where we signal that the goal is done, right? So I might say something like, hey, I really appreciate your help. This is the information I need. I appreciate you taking time to talk with me. Okay. And then we move into the closing where we say goodbye. And that's probably the shortest part of the phone call. I'll just say, hey, thanks for your time. Have a great day. All right. And so even though I don't think that this seems very strange, it is useful to practice, especially if you're a person who doesn't often speak on the telephone. Practicing effective telephone call stages can help you develop those professional communication skills. So some other tips about speaking on the telephone. Speak clearly. Try to articulate your words as clearly as you can because there is no nonverbal communication if it's just a voice call. Be specific about what you need. Be polite. If you have to take a phone call, try to do it in a private area. So go to your office, go to a quiet space so that there won't be interfering background noise, so that the person on the other end of the call will be able to hear you clearly. It is generally considered impolite to take private phone calls in public spaces. So if I'm, at an airport and I'm sitting in a busy area to take a call, generally that's considered kind of rude. Or even on the airplane before the plane is taken off, I've seen people get on their phones and have loud conversations. These are generally considered quite rude. I remember visiting the Tokyo subway many years ago and just being kind of pleasantly surprised at how quiet it was. And there were signs in the subway that told people, do not speak on your cell phone in the subway, that was just an established norm within Tokyo culture that you don't speak, you don't take phone calls on the subway. You find a private space to take your phone calls. Another expected norm is to silence phones during meetings, meals, obviously during class, and do not answer those phones during those situations. Now, if it's an emergency, then yeah, leave, excuse yourself if you have to. But in most cases, just silence it, put it away, and don't look at your phone when you're in meetings or meals. I can remember being at the inauguration of a university president, and a representative of a sister university was at that inauguration meeting or that dinner. And that university representative was sitting at a table next to me, and he was on his phone the whole time. Not a voice call, but clearly he was either texting or surfing or something the entire speech by the new university president. It left such a terrible impression of the sister university that their representative could not focus for half an hour during this meeting on the inauguration of the new university president. So don't let your organization reputation be negatively impacted by your misuse or your improper use of technology during meetings or business meals. So let's talk about some ceremonial presentations. These are presentations where you serve a role to help sort of accomplish a ceremonial task. So common ones are giving a toast, where we celebrate a person, or maybe we celebrate an accomplishment that a group did. Um, and this is just a short speech where we highlight a positive aspect of a person or a team to celebrate their success. A roast is related to a toast. The difference with the roast is that there's usually a lot more humor involved. Sometimes we tell slightly but safe, embarrassing stories about someone, but never something that would make anyone in the audience uncomfortable, and certainly not make the speaker uncomfortable. The problem with roasts is that some people who try to do a toast or a roast think that crude humor or embarrassing humor is appropriate, and really you still want to keep it professional. So you could tell a funny story, but not a funny story that someone would be embarrassed to have shared about them, or that the audience would feel uncomfortable hearing. Introducing presenters at a conference or another kind of meeting. Again, with almost all of these ceremonial presentations, the focus should not be on you as the presenter. The focus should be on highlighting the people that you're introducing or toasting or giving an award to. And so you want to keep your part of the presentation very short, very positive, and focused on highlighting the good qualities of the person that you are introducing or celebrating. Performing as a master of ceremonies is another ceremonial task. So if there is a large, maybe presentation or conference or company dinner, you're asked to be the master of ceremonies, which means that you will introduce different speakers or different events that will take place during the meeting. And so you need to, again, focus on other people, not focus on yourself. Ideally, you're going to have be practiced ahead of time. You'll have an agenda, but you're also flexible enough that you can share positive anecdotes or positive stories if sometimes there are delays in maybe the next presenter coming up, or there's a technology problem, that you can keep the audience focused and keep their attention while we wait for the next part or the next presenter to arrive. Even when you're accepting an award, which can be more about you, the most gracious way to do that is to focus on thanking others, maybe sharing an anecdote that highlights a key message that you want to share, but not making the message about you, making the message about the people who made your success possible. Another thing to consider with maybe non-traditional forms of presentations is media interviews. And so with the media interviews, you want to prepare yourself with sound bites or quotables. And what these are clear, concise, interesting, memorable, and repeatable messages that focus on your goals. So if I'm asked to give maybe a media interview for my organization, I'm going to think about what message does the organization want me to share at this time? How can I find one or two sentences that really highlight that message and practice it, so that if I'm asked to comment on a situation and how it relates to my organization, I have that sound bite or that quotable phrase or sentence prepared. Having a variety of good quality, relevant sound bites prepared when we have to interact with people outside our organization can help make our message more powerful and more memorable. These can work as well with social media. If you want to have a high impact social media message, think again about a quotable or a sound bite. How can you add images or sounds to improve the emotional impact of the message, making sure that it's relevant to the audience and that there's something that's drawing their attention or their interest, again, with visuals, music, or another message. And so lastly, when you do have to go into maybe a media interview, making sure you're preparing ahead of time with sound bites. What talking points are you comfortable talking about, and does your organization want you to highlight? What are points that they don't want you to highlight? And so again, prepare an alternate way of responding to that message that shares information that you and your organization are comfortable sharing. You need to practice not only the time to make sure that you can share your message in a concise way, but also the format. Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be online? So doing as much practice ahead of time can help you feel more confident and less stressed when the situation arrives. But also thinking about what are potential questions or topics that will be asked, and have you prepared concise responses to those questions? And overall, being clear, concise, and respectful in your language. Stay positive, stay on focus or on task, share the messages that you want. And when something comes up that's not part, have a soundbite prepared and you respond with that instead. So in this video, we talked about a variety of different presentation situations that go beyond a traditional presentation. And hopefully this will help you better prepare for this greater variety of situations where you may be asked to talk about your message.